Oh, so you're preparing to sell your home, and most people focus on renovating the kitchen, updating the bathrooms, or even giving the walls a fresh coat of paint. But there's one area that's overlooked. That's your garden. So today, Power Lunch is taking you outside, baby. It's all about landscaping and how landscaping can add real value to your property before the sale. Founder of Kitchen Gardens, Joy Pala, joins us once again. Hello, Joy. It's so lovely to be with you again.
Hi, Pabi. It's so good to hear from you. Thank you so much.
So, I want to catch up. How's organic kitchen gardens been going? How's things? Sorry,
You
everyone. Just give us
know,
a minute.
this is a really interesting time because usually around this time of year, because of the weather, we are not as busy, but we are finding ourselves starting new projects even now in the winter, which is fantastic because if you're doing any sort of construction work, you really want to do it now before the rains come
Yes,
because once
yes,
you have rain, there's just too many interruptions.
yes.
But I think that I know it's not obvious to think about home improvement and especially outdoor home improvement at this time of the year. But it just makes so much practical sense. So
So,
things are doing
yes,
great.
absolutely. And so you'd come in, and what would the basics be? Where would you begin?
It always starts with the client. It always starts with their particular lifestyles. And people are very, very clear about how they want to live, about the things that they aspire to. So even in the outdoor space, even with their gardens,
Yeah.
people need to be very clear about how they want to use their space. So it's going to be a very realistic approach as opposed to very too much aspirational. Aspiration is good, but it's going to be a very realistic approach in terms of I want to be able to host cheese and wine with my girls.
Yes.
How do I do that and create a space for that in my garden?
But
I want
sorry, Joy, but you're the seller. So now, are you landscaping for someone else's dream? Do you keep it as neutral as you can? How do you landscape to make it the best listing on whoever.com?
That's it. Yes. So it's going to be obviously in line with the style of the home, the architecture of the house, and just trying as best as possible to position that home to be attractive to the next buyer.
Yeah.
It's going to vary also from location. So, for example, selling a house in Atteridgeville requires a different type of landscaping
Yeah.
from selling a house in Houghton, for example, because the people in Houghton have a different lifestyle, in general, have different types of needs. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So, landscaping for positioning yourself and positioning your property for resale, you have to look one at the area because at the end of the day, you will always sell that property based on the average sales in that area. So the
Yeah.
lifestyle in that area is very crucial. You need to know that the people in Hartman, for example, are going to do cheese and wines. They're going to do bomas. They're going to do movie nights in and picnics
In
in
their
the garden.
gardens.
You
Yes.
know, on average, every home in Hartman has a water feature. It has a pool.
Mm.
So those are the things that are going to be. You look at what is normal and what is expected
Mm.
in that area, and then you pitch that to the client.
Um, yeah, I'm just, thinking of a silly joke about what you think about us here in Houghton. And then I remembered I just work here. I'm not actually a proper Houghton person. But let's talk about curb appeal, right?
Yes,
And how landscaping enhances this, bringing in more urban or bringing in greens in more urban spaces.
right. So when we talk about curb appeal, we're talking about the appeal of the property when somebody's driving by.
Yes.
So if you're a buyer, you are normally going to be driving by in the area that you are interested in buying and looking at different properties. That first impression when you look at the house from the outside, the garden may be on the curb, the garden that you're able to see on the driveway. Um, that is what we're talking about when we talk about curb appeal. And it has to be attractive. It has to make sense. If there's a long driveway, is that driveway earmarked by an avenue of trees? Is it an interesting driveway to drive on? Is the paving on that driveway updated or is it dated? The trees and the sense of privacy that the garden is providing, is it overgrown?
Mm.
All right. Is the design competing with the house? Because you do get those instances where maybe the trees have overgrown and you can hardly see the house.
Mm.
Or is the garden positioned in such a way that it makes the house attractive? You framed the views to the house and created privacy where privacy is needed. Is there some color that is attractive as I drive by? So those are the things that are going to make the first impression on a buyer.
And it's so true, even down to whatever smells beautiful at this
Yes.
season that you walk through, and that house will always, whether you buy it or not, you'll always think of, do you remember the Jasmine house?
Yes.
So that's quite important. And at this time, what do you think the beautiful smells are coming from?
Oh, citrus trees.
Oh,
You know,
nice.
everything is sort of in bloom or already starting to fruit. Jasmines will start flowering early in, late August, which is really our early spring. So yeah.
Okay, that's beautiful. So if you're looking to sell your home, Joy from Organic Kitchen Gardens is giving you an opportunity to up the value of your property before your sale by looking at a little bit of landscaping. So give us a call on 0861 987 000 and think about things to focus on when it comes to helping to attract buyers. You specialize in edible gardens. I mean,
Right.
tell me how that throws the price through the roof.
Right. It actually, prior to this conversation, I had a chat with uh, estate agents and colleagues of mine in the industry to speak specifically about little elements that increase the value of your property, or at least increases the buyer's perspective of the value of the properties. Adrian from Bauer Properties, we had a wonderful chat. But talking about edible gardens, you will have clients that say to you, I bought this house specifically because it has this particular infrastructure where I can
Really?
grow my own food, right? Because remember, growing your own food nowadays is more of a health,
Yeah.
a health conscious endeavor. Other people don't have a choice but to grow their own food
Yeah.
because of, health challenges like allergies or other things that happen to their body after consuming food that has been exposed to pesticides and all of that. So it becomes an essential element in how they live their lives. It becomes part of their lifestyle. So, yeah.
Part of their lifestyle for health, but also economically, it's so important now to be doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, for people who've just bought a home, what should they keep in mind when planning their landscaping from scratch?
I always go back to their particular lifestyles, but a few things that Adrian mentioned was that, especially for people who are staying at home or working from home, being able to walk outside of your house onto a patio, being able to interact with water in the landscape. Those sort of things
Mm.
become very crucial. That indoor outdoor experience and how easy it is for me to transition from outside, from inside to outside. Those sort of things become very, very important when you are, you know, starting things from scratch and designing your landscape from scratch. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pool because, a pool becomes one large capital outlay, and two, the maintenance of it and the upkeep of it becomes very expensive.
Mm.
But a small pond, a small water feature as you're coming into the house, those are the sort of things that one should look out for, and obviously incorporate in your traditional landscaping. See how you can bring in more food into your landscape.
Water scarcity is a concern in large
Oh,
parts of the country, yeah, and I wonder how homeowners can create sustainable yet attractive gardens for themselves with that in mind.
you know, in going indigenous, and I will even further say, not just indigenous, but what locally grows in the environment where you are, right? Because then you know, those plants are going to tolerate all sorts of environments. They're going to
Mm.
tolerate the lack of water. They're acclimatized to your immediate environment. So going indigenous is going to always be number one.
Mm.
Number two is get an irrigation system. This one I can't emphasize enough.
Mm.
And it sounds like you're going to be using a lot of water, but what you're actually doing is watering in a targeted manner,
Okay.
because not the whole garden needs to be watered the same, right? Where you've got areas that don't need a lot of water, you can put a timer. You can decide how much water goes in that area, as opposed to just watering everything at the same intensity. Yes.
Right, right, absolutely. Specific trends in landscaping. I didn't even know that there were trends in landscaping. So, if they are in the way we speak, in our fashion, in the shoes, of course,
Yes.
landscaping, all of it. So, give us the specific trends that make our homes look modern, look beautiful, but look
Right.
really, really of the now.
Yes. Um, an indigenous landscape, specifically for the reasons that we've just talked about, where it's a little bit more informal, it's a little bit more relaxed. There's quite a lot of that being clients are asking that sort of landscape design. You are also looking at areas where people can rest, where people can have conversation, where people can be able to create a little bit of a social environment outside. So we're looking at uh, patios, bomas, um, outdoor kitchens, outdoor gyms,
Mm.
you see. So those are the sort of things that are coming up more and more in the landscaping space.
Beauty is such an interesting thing because you'd love to be able to just look around and admire what you have. But there may also be a need for functionality, particularly if you have,
Absolutely.
multi generational home. And so
Yeah.
let's talk about how you balance beauty and functionality whilst designing outdoor spaces.
Yeah. It is, I think functionality is always going to be the driving factor. And once we have function, we take a look at how we beautify that space. Because, say, for example, you're doing a children's garden, right? When we talk about that multi generational and being able to cater for different needs in the home, Say, for example, you are doing a children's garden. You have to think about color and colors that children are going to be attracted to. Even if you're designing a jungle gym, it doesn't have to be that old, gum pole. Even if it's a gum pole, painted an interesting color. You know what I'm saying? And then when you think about the planting surrounding that jungle gym for your babies, make sure that it is also interesting for them. I love strawberries around the children's garden. I love bright, beautiful colors, purples, reds, oranges. Make it something that's going to be attractive to them. So functionality obviously will always be driving the decision. But once you've decided on the function, think about the materials. Think about the different textures that you want to incorporate into that space. Are you going to wood or concrete? Are you going to go with fabric for your what sort of fabric are you going with for your outdoor furniture? So make it, once you've decided what the function is, make it special with materials, with color, with planting.
Love that so much. Okay, so I've got OK Kitchen Gardens, and of course, we were always talking about organic kitchen gardens. Tell me what's
Right.
happened in your business.
It's still organic kitchen gardens. It's just that sometimes people shorten it to make it easy. I really need to think about changing the name. But it's still organic kitchen gardens. And, for inspiration, you can go on to our Instagram page and have a look at some of the work that we've done. It'll give you some really nice ideas for your next project.
Okay, fantastic. Because I just don't want to get it wrong for any reason. Maybe you
No
changed
problem.
because Trump became president or
A lot
something.
just happened.
Something just moved you. So there we go. The founder of Organic Kitchen Gardens, Joy Pala, talking to us about how to elevate the state of our outdoor areas when we want to sell our homes. Thanks again, and lovely to talk to you, Joy.